You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 4:15 is the time from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. Big series in the AL East does start tonight, a 3-game set at the big ballpark in the Bronx with a great rivalry, of course, between the Yankees and the Red Sox. It's Pomeranz and Tanaka in game number 1. Yanks 32-22 on the year, a very much of a pleasant surprise going up against the Red Sox, who are 2 games back of them. And now let's go out to someone that covers the Red Sox for the Boston Globe, and that, of course, is Alex Speier, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Alex, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time. What's happening?
My pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. How about this AL East? No one, I thought, could have predicted going into the year that after 50-something games in, the Yanks would be in first and the Blue Jays would be in last. How about this AL East?
Well, I think that it continues a pattern that we've seen really for almost the entirety of this decade, in which the talent levels of every team in the division are pretty tightly packed. It, once again, to me, is clearly the best division in baseball from top to bottom, to the point where, I don't think that there's a huge talent gap between even the last place Blue Jays and the 2 teams that are going to be playing in New York tonight. So I think that it's become a division where you expect the unexpected. Repeating is very, very hard to do, and I think that we're seeing that play out thus far this year.
If I was a betting man, I would still pick the Red Sox to win the division. I know it's still early as we're not even at the All-Star break, but this is a Red Sox team that it looks like, even though they're 31-25 and they should be very competitive this year, they do miss the presence of Big Papi, which we knew was going to be a storyline going into this year. Since you cover the team, how is life after Big Papi in Boston?
Different. I think that much is undeniable. The constant presence of a single game changer in the middle of the order hasn't existed, and the Red Sox have had to be kind of a more of a scratch and claw team, a team that's built around kind of rallies that are forged through a handful of hits over the course of an inning, rather than a bloop or a walk and a big fly. So that does represent a departure. The Red Sox rank relatively low in the American League in terms of homers, but their talent as a 1 through 9 offense remains pretty significant. I think that was evident in the month of May when they were second in the American League, only to the Astros in runs scored. But I think that they might be they're certainly not the same offense that they were last year with Ortiz, and as a result, they are more dependent upon their pitching, which the starting pitching for the most part this year has been quite good.
I know Pedro had the tweet last night saying Big Papi's working out, and then he clarified it by saying, hey, I didn't say Big Papi was coming back. But, you look at what Big Papi did last year, most people don't retire off that season. What was the feel in Boston off that thought process when he did retire after having a very good season?
I think that inside of Boston, most of the people who are around him on a day-to-day basis understood that this was something that he had been committed to for quite some time. It didn't really seem to have as much wiggle room as it's been interpreted to have nationally. But he was pretty adamant that he was kind of at a stage in his life where he was ready to do something besides baseball. The physical pain of getting ready to play baseball was considerable, and he really wanted to be invested in his kids' upbringings. I remember talking to him maybe 7 or so years ago when, in his own inimitable, charming, and profane way, he pronounced that there was no way that he was going to be playing baseball at the time that he was 40. Well, he exceeded that projection by playing until he was 40. But I think that he's someone who, even as recently as yesterday, he talked to my colleague Peter Abraham and other reporters and said he's very content with his decision to be retired.
Do you think he'll get into the Hall of Fame?
I do. I think that I think that it's challenging to kind of predict these things, but I think that there's been enough questions raised about the validity of the 2003 list on which he appeared for testing positive for a PED at a time when Major League Baseball wasn't penalizing players for positive tests, and at a time when there's even Commissioner Rob Manfred raised some questions about the validity of the names that appeared on that list. I think that is going to kind of allow him. That's going to kind of tilt the arrow in his favor among those who might object on the grounds of PEDs, and I just think that the DH thing is going to subside as a relevant consideration. We've already seen Frank Thomas go in. Other guys who are coming in from the era are going to be as bat first, if not bat only assets. And so I think that the place that he occupied in the game was distinctive enough and over a sustained enough period that I think that he'll have a pretty compelling case.
Alex Speier with us right now from the Boston Globe. Alex, when they brought in Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval a few years ago, people thought Panda was going to be worth that contract, and that's been the complete antithesis. As he was in the minors, he's been hurt. He was batting like 160 in the minors in that rehab assignment. Is there any hope at this point for Pablo Sandoval saving his Red Sox career at third base?
Well, he's clearly at a point where, at a kind of point of critical mass, because they did commit to him entering into this year, and to the, they may have been a little bit over aggressive in doing so, in trading away both of the depth options that they would have that presented themselves in the organization, getting rid of both Travis Shaw and Yohan Moncada. Sandoval had a fantastic spring training. There have been times during the season when it's looked like some of the strength that he was missing, perhaps because of the shoulder injury in 2015, was back. When he hits the ball, he's driving it again this year. But they need him to be a productive two-way player. You can't have a player playing third base every day if he can't field the ball and make kind of routine plays. And moreover, Sandoval is the Red Sox are at a point where they do have a very promising young prospect in the organization. Their best young prospect in the organization is a third baseman, Rafael Devers. And he's probably a superior defensive third baseman to Sandoval right now. And his offensive ceiling is pretty darn high. It's that of a middle-of-the-order bat with big power to all fields. It would be a bit aggressive for him to get up to the big leagues as a regular this year, but we've seen Dave Dombrowski not shying from making moves to kind of push his young players aggressively up from Double-A thus far. So, yes, Sandoval might be on borrowed time at third base. He's in a position where he has to produce, or else the Red Sox are going to seek other alternatives, whether it's Devers or the trade market.
And Shaw has turned into an all-star caliber third baseman with the numbers he's putting up this year. Thornburg has not been, he's been hurt, of course, for the Red Sox. Just at this point, and I know that it could potentially change during the course of the season, but if he wants to keep his job, like what is considered a success to keep his job for Pablo Sandoval?
I think playing at least league average defense, making the routine plays on a consistent basis, and not making a ton of errors, and then providing roughly league average offense for the position. I think that he's never going to be an elite power hitter. He does have a chance to hit for pretty high average based on the types of pitches that he's able to make contact with. He needs to be a little bit more selective, but let's say that he can hit in the 260 to 280 range with a bunch of doubles, and maybe double digit to teens home run power. I think that the Red Sox would probably sign on for that total package. Whether or not he'll be able to get there, it remains to be seen.
Now, going into the year, Benintendi, I thought he was going to be the Rookie of the Year just with what he did in the concise time last year. And now we know the Rookie of the Year in the AL is definitely going to be Aaron Judge, and he could win the AL MVP, especially with Trout now being down for a few weeks. What are the Boston Red Sox saying about Aaron Judge?
Well, they're all immensely impressed with what he's done, and rightly so. Everyone in baseball is immensely impressed with what he's done. I would suggest a little bit of caution about kind of assuming that the rest of his season is a foregone conclusion, merely insofar as other great rookies who have come up and been unbelievable for a couple of months at a time have had to deal with not just a small adjustment, but they've fallen off the cliff. In the case of the Red Sox, for instance, Benintendi was fantastic last year, fantastic at the start of this year. He's dealt with about a month of really a hard adjustment to the league, seeing just how precise the execution of major league pitchers can be when they identify a hole. Xander Bogaerts looked like he was going to be the Red Sox best player by early 2014, and then went in a shocking 3-month slump. So that was at a time when it looked like he was ready to perform at nearly an all-star level. So there is reason for some caution about Aaron Judge. Nonetheless, the ceiling that he's shown is that of a guy who has a chance to be, if he's what he's shown thus far in 2017, a perennial MVP candidate.
Since you give a little skepticism there, and Judge, we all know, hitting .324, 18 homers, and 41 RBIs, and I do believe that, yes, there will be a point this year that he will struggle, but what do you see his numbers probably finishing up this year, since you did give us that side of caution?
I'm not in a position to make that kind of prediction as someone who doesn't watch him on a daily basis. my experience of even elite rookies, and that's, including Manny Machado, for instance, with the Orioles, back when he was in his first full big league season, back in 2013. The drop off in the second half has a chance to be pretty considerable, unless you're the Mike Trouts of the world. And as we know, those are few and far between. So I think that this season already represents a fantastic success for Judge. I would just suggest some hesitation about assuming that what he's done to date is sustainable over the course of this full season.
We could all agree, though, that what the Yankees are doing right now, it's shocking with the word rebuild that was thrown around them. And I didn't even think this offense was going to be this good going into the year. And we're seeing the production from Judge, what Castro's doing, Gardner, Hicks, and Didi and Sanchez. They were out for a while, but now they've returned and they've played well. Since we have talked about this division and how much change there's been in the last few years, what's the sense that you get with how this division plays out?
I think you expect the unexpected. I do think that the Red Sox, if you talk to evaluators, most people view the Red Sox as kind of the consensus favorites, but the Yankees have clearly impressed most people as being more advanced, further along in their quote unquote rebuild than anyone anticipated. To the point where I think that a large part of it is going to be dictated by health and what moves people make at the trade deadline. The Yankees are going to be in a position where they can consider some upgrades at the trade deadline. And by the end of that, by the time August 1st rolls around, there's a very real chance that they'll be considered the most talented team in the division.
Wrapping up with Alex Speier from the Boston Globe. Yankees and Red Sox tonight at the big ballpark in the Bronx. Hopefully the weather does hold up. It should tonight, so we should be getting baseball in, but you never know with the weather these days. Tanaka and Pomeranz is the matchup tonight. Last time Tanaka went up against the Red Sox, it was his best start of the year. With this pitching matchup and also just the rest of the Red Sox rotation, we know Sale has been a stud. Price was hurt, and now he's back. Just forecast what you think is going to happen tonight with Tanaka and Pomeranz, and also the Red Sox starting pitching the rest of the way.
Pomeranz at Yankee Stadium is an interesting one because he is a fly ball pitcher, someone who uses four-seamer up as well as throws a curveball. So when he misses his spot, it tends to be a fly ball. And given the power of the Yankees lineup, that's a tough formula. But Pomeranz has been really very much on point in his last two starts. So if he's able to be a three-pitch pitcher, someone who's able to use his cutter particularly effectively against right-handed hitters, then he gives the Red Sox a pretty good shot. Tanaka was brilliant against the Red Sox early in the season, and that splitter obviously plays really well against their left-handed heavy lineup. But he's had a tough time of things for a while, as you know. So this will be a kind of interesting litmus test for whether or not he's able to kind of find a way to craft his way into being competitive in the division.
And just the rest of the rotation right now for the Red Sox, just moving forward. Price, I know he's been someone that there's been a lot of questions about because if he could be tough enough to last in Boston with some of the stuff that's gone down last year, especially with some of the tweets. What do you make of Price moving forward?
I mean, he was really good in Boston last year, so I think that tends to be a kind of flashpoint, a bit of a lightning rod, like the question of his social media engagement. But I think that's a bit of a red herring. He's a really good pitcher if he's healthy, and he's but I think that much like Tanaka, there is going to be a question going forward about just how healthy he is, based on the fact that the reason why he was sidelined was a forearm injury. All initial signs for him are pretty promising that he's back and back to being pretty close to David Price, throwing in the mid-90s with relative ease and now with command. So that's a great sign for the Red Sox. But, I think that once you have a forearm injury, then until you undergo surgery, there is forever going to be the question, is this the start? Is this the start? Is this the start? So I think that health rather than the city of Boston and or social media are the biggest questions that surround him.
The Red Sox bullpen, Kimbrel's been lights out. Kelly has been a very good pitcher for you guys this year with the ERA. How about this bullpen the Red Sox have?
Probably still short in eighth-inning arm. Kelly has been up and down. At times he's looked really good. He's looked very good since really the beginning of May. But I think that he still has he's just inconsistent enough, both with the strike zone and outing to outing, that, the two guys who they've acquired in the last two off seasons to be their eighth inning guys, Tyler Thornburg and Carson Smith, have yet to throw a pitch this year. So the shape of the Red Sox bullpen in front of Kimbrel, who's been unbelievable, by the way, is largely dependent upon how healthy those guys get. And Smith is probably getting closer to the possibility of a rehab assignment, or the emergence of Kelly. But I think that there's a feeling that the Red Sox setup roles are kind of still unsettled at this point.
Last one is we're talking to Alex Speier from the Boston Globe right here on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. The Red Sox catching situation with Vasquez and Leon, is it a platoon? And how about this catching situation for the Boston Red Sox?
It's not a platoon. It's kind of more of a personal catcher, assigned catcher setup in which Vasquez has been catching Pomeranz, along with Eduardo Rodriguez, who's now on the DL, and Leon has been getting Sale as well as Porcello. Vasquez got Price in that first outing back. I think that I think that it's kind of mix and match. You'll see the time apportionment leaning a little bit based on who's hitting a little bit better at a given time. But I think that the Red Sox are pretty content with what they have, in that it's something of a formula for keeping both guys healthy and on the field for the long haul this year.
Alex, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks.
There's Alex Speier from the Boston Globe joining us on the Zach Gelb Show. Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Yankees and Red Sox that start tonight, 7:05 at the big ballpark in the Bronx. Pomeranz and Tanaka. That will be the matchup tonight. Porcello and Sabathia tomorrow. And then coming up on Thursday, it's going to be Price and Pineda. So no Sale for the Red Sox in this series, who has just been magnificent this year. And you've even seen it from the tweets of Pedro Martinez. And some people, they don't throw that around very easily in Boston, but he's doing close to Pedro type of stuff. Don't want to say it's Pedro type of stuff because it's a different level and on a different planet. But what Price is doing right now is definitely special. And you take a look at the landscape of the AL East, and I don't believe that Judge is gonna. I think Judge is gonna have a monster year. He's gonna continue to have a monster year, and he's gonna be the AL Rookie of the Year. Is he gonna be the MVP? Right now, he's the MVP of the league. Will it be that way at the end of the year? I don't know. This guy's definitely gonna hit over 30 home runs this year. He's probably gonna hit over 35 home runs. He has 18 home runs right now, 324 average, and 41 ribbies. So this is going to be a guy, I'm not saying that he's going to hit 330, 60 home runs, be delirious, and tell you he's going to drive in 150 runs. No. I'm pretty confident with what we're seeing out of Judge, and I know last year he was not great. We all know that. He was batting a $170-something, a concise sample size. But what he's doing right now, it's very special. And I get why you could possibly err on the side of caution. I could see that argument where he's not going to, what he's doing right now, he's not going to continue to do that the entire year. And yes, there will be a cold period, and he will have to go through a slump like every other player. But I think Aaron Judge, at this point, he will win the Rookie of the Year MVP. It's going to be close. Right now, he's the favorite to do that. I will agree, though, with Alex, though. I'll say this. The Red Sox should still win this division. The Yankees starting pitching, I know Severino has been very good for them this year. I know you've gotten already more than you could expect out of Sabathia, and Pineda has been nice for them. But if Tanaka doesn't get his act together, I just don't see how you could win this division. We all know that when you get Chapman back, that bullpen, it's going to continue to be good because you have Chapman and Betances. And this is a Yankees lineup that they're going to hit for the rest of the year. That's not debatable. This is a Yankees lineup that they are going to hit. You look at the names. Castro has been unbelievable. Gardner has 12 or 13 home runs. Hicks has been a pleasant surprise. Didi Gregorius has not missed a beat since coming back. Sanchez has given you, not Gary Sanchez of last year, but still, he's been impressive coming off the DL. And we'll see when they eventually, if they do, which I would assume they would, but you never know. Maybe they bring up Gleyber Torres and move Chase Headley out by the end of the year. This turnaround for the Yankees has gone a lot quicker than anyone could expect. But I will still say that the Red Sox do win the division, and this should be a fun series. The next 3 days should be very fun. And you also look at this division, the Orioles 29-26. Orioles are always the team that plays Boston close. The Rays 29-30, 5.5 back. I don't love the Rays. but they're in this race right now. And the Blue Jays, we'll see what the Blue Jays are. Because this is a Blue Jays team almost 60 games into the season that you thought they'd be a whole lot better. And they're 2 games under 500. This is the division. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun summer. And who would have thought going into this year that we would barely be talking about the Mets going into the summer? Because the Mets are 24-31. They've been abysmal. And we're going to be talking a lot about the Yankees in the summer. Because the Yankees are going to be in this thing. The Yankees at this point, it would be a disappointment if they don't make the playoffs. Because now, let's remember, you have 2 wild card spots. This is a Yankees team. They're going to be competing for a playoff spot. Not only a playoff spot, but a division from now until the end of the year. I don't think they will win that division, like I said. I'll still go with Boston, who I picked going into this year, as the Red Sox have been a team. We'll see what Price will look like in this series. Porcello has not been great this year. We know that. But that is someone that you would assume would turn it around because he is the reigning Cy Young Award winner. Sale has been lights out. The bullpen, Kimbrel has been special. Kelly, you look at the numbers. He's had a nice year for the Red Sox. The bullpen does scare me a little bit, does concern you a little bit if you're the Red Sox. Maybe if they add someone in, or you see they get back coming back from injuries, and you look at the lineup for the Red Sox, yes, you lose that protection, which is just so valuable of Big Papi, as, yes, Big Papi's a Hall of Fame player. I don't care what he's accused of. He's a Hall of Fame player. One of the most clutch players I've ever seen. He's a winner, and he's someone that hit many prodigious home runs after home runs in the big spots. So Big Papi has to be a Hall of Famer. And you'll just see how that lineup will continue to adapt and grow as the year does go on. Because remember, little shaky start to this year. You got to like the outfield with Benintendi, good player, Bradley Jr., Betts, Petey in Petroria right now is hurt. He's out. And you'll see what you could get just from the third base spot the rest of the year. Overall, this is a Red Sox team. If their pitching can show you some more consistency, yeah, it's a World Series contending team. They definitely are. And I'll just tell you this, though. We talk about pitching. No one's pitching right now is better than the Astros. This Astros team, whew, they are scary right now. They are very scary. I jumped the gun a little bit. I've had them go into the World Series last year and didn't have them doing it this year. But this Astros team is very good. And I mean very good. So that's what you got right now in baseball. Once again, Pomerantz, Tanaka, Porcello, Sabathia, and Price and Pineda coming up this week. Yankees and Red Sox. 4:38 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We'll take a break right now. We're coming on back. And when we get back, we're going to revisit the Rick Barry interview that we did the other day. We got to go over some quotes. And also, we will put out a possible trade that could be coming to fruition. It's been a rumored trade. What NBA Insider said, it could be a possibility with the draft. So we'll get to that next, coming up on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.